Commander Jake Mitchell stared at the massive screen in front of him. The Defense Station Orbital Guardian floated silently in space, watching over Earth like a metal guardian angel. Jake had been doing this job for 5 years now, but he had never seen anything like what appeared on his sensors today. Huge ships were moving toward Earth from the dark space between stars. These ships were bigger than anything humans had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, like a pack of wolves hunting prey. Jake pressed the emergency button on his control panel. Red lights started flashing all over the station. Other officers ran to their positions as alarms filled the air with loud sounds. Lieutenant Beth Taylor rushed to Jake's side and looked at the screen. Her face went white when she saw the alien ships approaching their solar system. The ships belonged to something called the Zephyrian Empire. Jake had heard stories about them from deep space scouts who barely escaped with their lives. The Zephyrians had been conquering worlds for hundreds of years. They took over planets like humans picked flowers from a garden. No one had ever stopped them before. No one had even tried to fight back, and War Admiral Krothtok commanded the alien fleet from his massive flagship. The ship was so big that it blocked out stars when it moved. Krothtok had destroyed countless worlds and enslaved millions of beings across the galaxy. He thought humans were just another weak species that would surrender without a real fight. He had no idea how wrong he was about that. The first target the aliens chose was Luna Base on the moon. Colonel Lisa Harper was in charge of the moon's defenses. She watched her sensors as the alien ships moved closer to the moon. Lisa knew her. Weapons were not strong enough to stop the attack, but she had to try anyway. She ordered all defensive systems to fire at the approaching enemy ships. The moon's laser cannons and missile systems fired everything they had at the alien fleet. The weapons hit the Zephyrian ships, but barely left marks on their thick armor. The alien ships did not even slow down. They kept moving toward the moon like nothing had happened at all. And the aliens fired back. Their weapons were unlike anything humans had seen before. Beams of pure energy struck Luna Base and turned buildings into dust. The moon's surface exploded in massive clouds of rock and fire. Within minutes, every human base on the moon was completely destroyed. Thousands of people died in the attack. Lisa Harper sent one last message to Earth before her communication system was destroyed. Captain Ben Davis was on Mars when he received the news about Luna Base. He commanded a small fleet of human warships that protected the Mars colonies. Ben knew his ships were not strong enough to fight the aliens, but he had to protect the people on Mars. He ordered his fleet to move between Mars and the approaching alien ships. Ben's fleet had 12 ships. The aliens had hundreds. Ben's ships were fast, but had weak weapons and thin armor. The alien ships were slower, but had weapons that could destroy a human ship with one shot. Ben knew this would be a very short battle, but he refused to run away and leave the colonists to die. The space battle began when Ben's ships fired their missiles at the alien fleet. The missiles exploded against the alien ships, but did no real damage. The aliens returned fire with their energy weapons. The first human ship to be hit broke apart like a toy. The second ship exploded in a ball of fire. One by one, Ben's ships were destroyed by the superior alien weapons. Ben's own ship was the last one left alive. He fired his remaining weapons at the largest alien ship, but could not break through its shields. The aliens fired back and hit Ben's ship in the engine room. The ship started spinning out of control as fires broke out all over the vessel. Ben managed to send a final message to Mars Command before his ship exploded. Back on Earth, President. Susan Martinez sat in the emergency meeting room deep underground. The room was filled with military leaders and scientists who all looked very worried. General Roy Campbell showed everyone the reports from Luna Base and Mars. The news was terrible. The human defense forces had been completely destroyed in less than 2 hours. Admiral Kate Foster looked at the tactical displays showing the alien fleet moving toward Earth. She calculated that the aliens would reach Earth orbit in less than 3 days. A human space fleet was too small and weak to stop them. All the weapons on Earth combined were not strong enough to hurt the alien ships. It seemed like humanity was about to face complete defeat. Dr. Alan Pierce sat quietly in the corner of the meeting room. He was the head of a secret project that most people in the room did not know about. Dr. Pierce had been working on this project for 30 years, ever since humanity first learned about the Zephyrian Empire. He had hoped this day would never come, but he had been preparing for it anyway. President Martinez asked her advisors what options humanity had. General Campbell said they could try to negotiate with the aliens. Admiral Foster suggested evacuating people to underground shelters. Other advisors talked about sending messages to other alien races asking for help. But Dr. Pierce knew that none of these plans would work. The Zephyrians did not negotiate with the species they conquered. They simply took over planets and enslaved everyone they found. Underground shelters would not protect people from alien weapons that could destroy entire mountains. And there were no other alien races strong enough to fight the Zephyrian Empire. Dr. Pierce finally spoke up and told everyone about Project Prometheus. This was humanity's most secret project. It had been hidden from everyone except a small group of people who worked on it. The project was humanity's last hope for survival. Dr. Pierce explained that they had been preparing for this invasion for decades, but he could not tell them all the details yet. He needed time to make final preparations. Alien fleet continued moving toward Earth, while humanity prepared for the fight of their lives. 30 years ago, deep space probe Voyager 12 was exploring the outer edges of the galaxy when it detected something unusual. The probe picked up radio signals that were clearly not from any human source. Dr. Alan Pierce was a young scientist working at the space agency when the probe transmitted these alien communications back to Earth. The messages were in a language no one had ever heard before, but computers were able to translate some of the words. The translations revealed something terrifying. The signals came from something called Zephyrian Empire. These aliens were talking about conquering worlds and enslaving entire species. They mentioned destroying civilizations that tried to fight back. The probe continued listening to their communications for 3 months before the aliens discovered it and destroyed it. But those 3 months gave humanity enough information to understand the threat they would face someday. Most government leaders wanted to ignore the alien signals and pretend they did not exist. They thought the Zephyrians were too far away to be a real threat to Earth. But Dr. Pierce convinced a small group of world leaders that humanity needed to prepare for an eventual invasion. He argued that the aliens would find Earth sooner or later, and when they did, humanity would need to be ready. President Martinez's predecessor secretly approved Project Prometheus and gave Dr. Pierce unlimited resources to develop humanity's defense. The project was so classified that only a few dozen people in the entire world knew about it. Even most government leaders and military commanders did not know the project existed. Captain Steve Morgan was one of the first people recruited to work on Project Prometheus. He was a brilliant military strategist who understood that conventional weapons would never be enough to stop an advanced alien civilization. Steve worked with Dr. Pierce to develop new types of weapons that could fight enemies with superior technology. Engineer Beth Taylor joined the project 2 years later. She was an expert in quantum physics and energy systems. Beth's job was to find ways to turn the aliens' own technology against them. She spent years studying the alien communications that Voyager 12 had intercepted, looking for weaknesses in their systems. The project built secret facilities all around the world. These facilities were hidden underground or disguised as ordinary Buildings. Commander Paul Green oversaw the construction of these hidden bases. Each facility was connected to the others through a network of quantum communication devices that the aliens could not detect or intercept. Dr. Nina Clark worked on the most important part of the project. She developed special devices that could be hidden throughout Earth's cities and infrastructure. These devices used quantum entanglement technology that was far more advanced than anything most humans knew existed. The devices were so small that they could be hidden inside buildings, vehicles, and even everyday objects without anyone noticing them. Lieutenant Colonel Rick Stone led the teams that placed these quantum devices all around the world. His people worked in complete secrecy, installing the devices in major cities, military bases, power plants, and communication centers. They worked at night and used cover stories to explain their presence anywhere people might see them. Over the course of 20 years, they placed thousands of these devices throughout Earth's civilization. The quantum devices were connected to a network of antimatter facilities that were built in remote locations around the world. These facilities were buried deep underground and hidden from satellite detection. Each facility contained enough antimatter to power a small city, but they were designed for a very different purpose. The antimatter would be used to create massive energy pulses that could travel through quantum space. Beth Taylor discovered something very important about the Zephyrian Empire while studying their intercepted communications. The aliens used a type of hive mind communication system that connected all their ships and bases throughout the galaxy. This system allowed them to coordinate their massive empire and control their conquered territories. But Beth realized that this same system could also be their greatest weakness. The hive mind network operated on quantum frequencies that were similar to the technology Project Prometheus was developing. Beth calculated that if they could send the right type of energy pulse through the alien communication network, it would cause catastrophic feedback throughout their entire empire. The pulse would travel instantly to every Zephyrian ship and base, no matter how far away they were. Major Carl Webb worked on developing the delivery system for this quantum pulse. His team designed a way to use Earth's hidden antimatter facilities to generate an energy wave that would connect with the alien hive mind network. A system required perfect timing and coordination between all the hidden facilities around the world. Technician Amy Shaw helped build the control systems that would activate Project Prometheus when the time came. Her job was to make sure all the hidden devices and antimatter facilities could be triggered simultaneously with a single command. The activation sequence was so complex that it required multiple people to enter their authorization codes at exactly the same time. While Project Prometheus was being developed, the Zephyrian Empire continued conquering worlds throughout the galaxy. Deep space monitoring stations occasionally picked up their communications as they destroyed other civilizations. Each new report confirmed that the aliens were getting closer to Earth. Dr. Pierce and his team worked faster, knowing that they were running out of time. The project members lived double lives for decades. During the day, they worked normal jobs and appeared to be ordinary citizens. At night and on weekends, they worked on humanity's most important secret. They could not tell their families or friends about their real work. Many of them sacrificed personal relationships and normal lives to prepare for a war that might never come. Commander Lucy Grant joined Project Prometheus in its final years. Her job was to coordinate with resistance cells that would help evacuate key personnel when the aliens arrived. These resistance cells did not know about Project Prometheus, but they were prepared to help protect important scientists and military leaders during an invasion. The project cost trillions of dollars over 3 decades, but the money was hidden in normal government budgets and disguised as spending for other programs. The general public never knew that a significant portion of their tax money was being used to prepare for an alien invasion. Politicians who were not part of the project sometimes complained about waste in government spending, not knowing that this waste was actually humanity's insurance policy. As the years passed, some people working on Project Prometheus began to hope that the aliens would never find Earth. Maybe the Zephyrians would be destroyed by another alien race, or maybe they would decide that Earth was not worth conquering. But Dr. Pierce always reminded his team that hope was not a strategy. They continued working and preparing for the day when their secret project would determine whether humanity survived or joined the long list of civilizations that the Zephyrian Empire had destroyed. Now that day had finally arrived, and Project Prometheus was humanity's only chance to avoid extinction. General Campbell sat in the emergency command center and made the hardest decision of his military career. He ordered all human forces to stand down and prepare for surrender. This went against everything he believed in as a soldier, but he knew it was part of a larger plan that could save humanity. The fake surrender had to look completely real, or the aliens would suspect a trap. Admiral Foster received the surrender orders and felt sick to her stomach. She had spent her entire life defending Earth, and now she had to tell her ships to give up without a fight. But she understood that this deception was humanity's only hope. She opened communication channels to all human military units throughout the solar system and transmitted the surrender message. The message was broadcast to every human ship, base, and outpost. It told them to power down their weapons and prepare to be captured by the alien forces. Many soldiers and officers were confused and angry when they heard the orders. They wanted to fight the aliens even if they could not win. But military discipline held, and the human forces followed their orders to surrender. Captain Davis was aboard his damaged ship when he received the surrender transmission. His ship was barely holding together after the battle at Mars, but he was ready to keep fighting until his last breath. When he heard Admiral Foster's orders to surrender, he felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. But Davis was a good soldier, and he followed orders even when he did not understand them. War Admiral Croft Talk watched the humans surrender from the bridge of his massive flagship. He was surprised that the humans had given up so quickly. Most species tried to fight longer before they realized how hopeless their situation was. But Kraftalk was pleased that this conquest would be easier than expected. Easy conquests meant fewer casualties among his own forces. The Zephyrian fleet moved into orbit around Earth without meeting any resistance. The alien ships spread out around the planet like a metal net, blocking any escape routes. Kraftalk ordered his forces to begin landing operations. Transport ships filled with alien soldiers started descending toward Earth's major cities. Dr. Pierce worked frantically in the Colorado Mountain Complex, making final preparations for Project Prometheus. The complex was hidden deep inside a mountain and disguised as a research facility for studying earthquakes. Major Carl Webb and technician Amy Shaw worked alongside Dr. Pierce, checking and rechecking every system. They had only one chance to make their plan work, and everything had to be perfect. The quantum devices that had been hidden throughout Earth for decades were now activated and ready. Each device was connected to the global network through quantum entanglement, which meant they could all communicate instantly, no matter how far apart they were. The devices were waiting for the final activation signal that would trigger Project Prometheus. Commander Lucy Grant was in charge of evacuating key personnel from areas where the aliens were landing. She coordinated with resistance cells to move important scientists and military leaders to safe locations. The resistance fighters did not know about Project Prometheus, but they helped evacuate people who would be needed after the plan was completed. The first alien landing ships touched down in major cities around the world: New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, and dozens of other cities watched as huge alien vessels landed in their streets and parks. The ships were enormous, much larger than any building humans had ever constructed. When the landing ramps lowered, alien soldiers marched out in perfect formation. The Zephyrian soldiers were impressive and terrifying. They were taller than humans and wore armor that seemed to absorb light. Their weapons could destroy vehicles and buildings with single shots. The aliens moved through the cities like they owned them, which they now did according to the laws of conquest. Sub-Admiral Velthur commanded the ground invasion forces. He had conquered hundreds of worlds for the Zephyrian Empire and knew exactly how to control a defeated population. His soldiers established command posts in every major city and began setting up the infrastructure needed to govern their new territory. The aliens broadcast messages to the human population telling them to remain calm and follow orders. Anyone who resisted would be killed immediately. Anyone who cooperated would be allowed to live as slaves in the new Zephyrian colony. Most humans stayed in their homes and tried to avoid the alien patrols that moved through their neighborhoods. But not all humans were hiding in their homes. The resistance cells that Commander Grant had organized were watching the aliens and learning about their equipment and tactics. These brave men and women risked their lives to gather information that might be useful later. They also helped evacuate civilians from areas where the aliens were setting up military installations. Dr. Pierce and his team discovered something important about the Zephyrian communication network during the invasion. The alien ships and ground forces were all connected through their hive mind system, just like Beth Taylor had predicted years ago. Every alien soldier, vehicle, and weapon was linked to the network. This connection made them incredibly efficient, but it also made them vulnerable to the right kind of attack, the quantum devices hidden throughout. Earth cities were detecting the alien communication signals and mapping the network structure. The devices collected information about the frequency patterns and signal pathways that the aliens used. This information was sent back to the Colorado Mountain complex where Dr. Pierce and his team analyzed it. Major Webb reported that the antimatter facilities were fully charged and ready to generate the quantum pulse. All 23 hidden facilities around the world were connected and synchronized. The pulse they would create would be powerful enough to travel through quantum space and reach every part of the Zephyrian communication network. Amy Shaw monitored the activation systems and confirmed that all quantum devices were responding properly. The devices had been placed in perfect positions to intercept the alien signals and redirect them through the antimatter network. When Project Prometheus was activated, the aliens' own communication system would become the delivery method for their destruction. The aliens continued their occupation of Earth, believing they had achieved another easy victory. They set up slave labor camps and began organizing the human population for maximum productivity. Kraftok was pleased with how smoothly the conquest was proceeding. He sent reports back to the Zephyrian homeworlds, describing Earth as a valuable addition to the Empire. But the aliens had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated human intelligence and determination. While they celebrated their victory and organized their new colony, humans were preparing to strike back in a way the aliens never expected. The fake surrender had worked perfectly, and now the trap was almost ready to be sprung. President Martinez sat in her secure bunker and prepared to give the order that would determine humanity's fate. She held the activation codes for Project Prometheus in her hands and waited for Dr. Pierce to confirm that everything was ready. The moment was approaching when Earth would send its final message to the Zephyrian Empire. President Martinez walked through the corridors of the Nevada bunker that had become humanity's last command center. The bunker was buried so deep underground that even the most powerful alien weapons could not reach it. She carried a small device in her hand that contained the activation codes for Project Prometheus. Her fingers trembled slightly as she thought about what she was about to do. The main command room was filled with military officers and scientists who had spent decades preparing for this moment. Dr. Pierce stood at the central control panel, monitoring the quantum network that connected all the hidden devices around the world. Every screen in the room showed different aspects of the alien occupation and the status of humanity's secret weapon system. War Admiral Kraftak was growing impatient with the slow pace of the human enslavement process. He had expected the humans to be completely broken by now, but there were still signs of resistance in some cities. Small groups of humans were conducting sabotage operations against alien equipment, and some were even attacking alien patrols. These acts of defiance annoyed Kraftak because they suggested the humans had not fully accepted their defeat. The alien commander decided to send a stronger message to the human population. He ordered his forces to begin systematic destruction of Earth's remaining military installations and government buildings. This would show the humans that resistance was completely hopeless and encourage them to accept their new status as slaves of the Zephyrian Empire. Commander Helen Price was stationed at a monitoring post that tracked alien communications throughout the solar system. She reported to Dr. Pierce that the aliens were preparing for a major bombardment of Earth's surface. The alien ships were moving into positions that would allow them to target every major city simultaneously. Helen estimated that the bombardment would begin within hours. Dr. Pierce knew that this was the moment they had been waiting for. The aliens were about to commit their entire fleet to the attack, which would make them completely vulnerable to Project Prometheus. He turned to President Martinez and told her that all systems were ready for activation. The fate of humanity now depended on her decision. President Martinez approached the communication console that would transmit her message directly to the alien flagship. She had practiced this message many times, but now that the moment had arrived, she felt the weight of billions of lives on her shoulders. She opened the communication channel and began speaking to War Admiral Kraf. "Okay, Dot?" Her voice was calm and steady as she delivered humanity's final warning to the alien commander. She told him that Earth had one last message for the Zephyrian Empire. She explained that the aliens had made a terrible mistake by attacking humanity. She warned that if they continued their assault on Earth, they would face consequences beyond their imagination. Kraftak listened to the human president's message with amusement and contempt. He had heard similar threats from hundreds of species before destroying their civilizations. These desperate words were always the last pathetic attempt of a defeated enemy to avoid their fate. He responded to President Martinez by telling her that humans were now property of the Zephyrian Empire and had no right to make demands or threats. The alien commander decided to demonstrate his power by ordering an immediate bombardment of Washington, D.C., where he believed the human government was located. He did not know that all important government officials had been evacuated to secret bunkers months ago. The bombardment would be meaningless except as a show of force. But Kraftak enjoyed destroying the symbols of conquered civilizations. Chief Scientist Gary Lee worked alongside Dr. Pierce in the Colorado Mountain Complex, monitoring the quantum entanglement network. Every alien attack created more connections between their ships and the hidden devices on Earth. The Zephyrian communication system was designed to coordinate their attacks, but it was also creating the pathway that would lead to their destruction. Captain Morgan was aboard the command vessel Defiance, one of the few human ships that had survived the initial battles. His ship was disguised as wreckage floating in space, but it was actually a fully functional relay node for the quantum signal. Morgan and his crew had volunteered for this dangerous mission, knowing they might not survive the activation of Project Prometheus. The alien fleet began moving into final attack positions around Earth. Hundreds of massive warships prepared to unleash their weapons on the planet's surface. The aliens believed this bombardment would end any remaining human resistance and complete their conquest of the solar system. They had no idea that every ship in their fleet was about to become a target for humanity's secret weapon, Dr. Pierce. initiated the final preparation sequence for Project Prometheus. The antimatter facilities around the world began charging their energy cores to maximum capacity. The quantum devices hidden throughout Earth's cities started resonating at the precise frequency needed to connect with the alien communication network. Everything was working exactly as planned. Amy Shaw monitored the activation systems from her control station. She reported that all quantum entanglement devices were synchronized and ready to transmit the antimatter pulse. The signal would travel instantly through quantum space to every part of the Zephyrian Empire, using their own communication network as the delivery system. The aliens' greatest strength would become the instrument of their complete destruction. Lieutenant Colonel Rick Stone was in charge of the final evacuation procedures. His teams had already moved all essential personnel to safe locations, but there were still some people in target areas who needed to be protected. Rick coordinated with resistance cells around the world to get these people to underground shelters before Project Prometheus was activated. The quantum devices detected that the alien fleet was fully committed to the attack. Every Zephyrian ship was now connected to the hive mind network and preparing to fire on Earth's surface. This was the perfect moment to trigger humanity's response, because all the alien forces would be linked together when the antimatter pulse hit their communication system. President Martinez received confirmation from Dr. Pierce that all systems were ready for activation. She looked around the command room at the faces of the people who had worked so hard to make this moment possible. These brave men and women had sacrificed everything to give humanity a chance to survive. Now it was time to see if their decades of preparation would be enough. The president took a deep breath and placed her hand on the activation switch. She spoke the words that would either save humanity or condemn it to extinction. She told the alien commander that Earth was transmitting its final message. She warned him one last time that if the aliens struck again, they would cease to exist. Then she activated Project Prometheus and waited to see if humanity's greatest gamble would succeed or fail. War Admiral Krathtok dismissed President Martinez's final warning as the desperate words of a defeated species. He had conquered hundreds of worlds and destroyed countless civilizations, and no enemy had ever made good on such threats. The alien commander gave the order for his fleet to begin the complete bombardment of Earth's surface. Every major city would be reduced to rubble, and any remaining human resistance would be crushed forever. The moment the first alien weapons fired at Earth's surface, Dr. Pierce activated Project Prometheus. His finger pressed the activation button. That sent the signal to antimatter facilities hidden around the world. The quantum entanglement network that had been built over 30 years instantly connected all the hidden devices and began generating the most powerful energy pulse in human history. The antimatter facilities discharged their energy cores simultaneously, creating a massive quantum pulse that traveled through space faster than light itself. The pulse moved through dimensions that normal matter could not reach, following the pathways created by the Zephyrian communication network. The aliens' own technology became the delivery system for their complete destruction. The quantum pulse reached the alien flagship in less than a second. The energy wave flowed through the ship's communication systems like water flowing through pipes. Every circuit, every computer, and every communication device in the ship became a conduit for the antimatter energy. The pulse spread from the flagship to every other ship in the fleet through their hive mind network. Commander Mitchell watched from the rebuilt orbital Guardian as the impossible happened. The massive Zephyrian flagship, which had seemed invincible just moments before, suddenly exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The explosion was so bright that it temporarily blinded the sensors on the space station. When the light faded, there was nothing left where the flagship had been, except empty space. The antimatter pulse continued spreading through the alien communication network at the speed of thought. Every Zephyrian ship in Earth's orbit began exploding in sequence as the energy wave reached their systems. The explosions created a chain reaction of light and destruction that lit up the entire solar system. Within minutes, hundreds of alien warships had been completely destroyed. But the destruction did not stop with the ships around Earth. The quantum pulse traveled through the hive mind network to every part of the Zephyrian Empire throughout the galaxy. Scout ships exploring distant star systems suddenly exploded without warning. Military bases on conquered worlds were destroyed in flashes of antimatter energy. Even the Zephyrian home worlds felt the pulse as their communication networks overloaded and triggered massive explosions. Captain Davis led the surviving human ships in securing the debris field that had once been the alien fleet. His damaged vessel moved carefully through the wreckage, scanning for any signs of surviving alien technology. The explosions had been so complete that very little remained of the massive ships that had threatened to destroy humanity just hours before. Sub-Admiral Velther and his ground forces on Earth were also connected to the hive mind network when Project Prometheus was activated. The alien soldiers suddenly stopped moving as the quantum pulse reached their communication implants. For a moment, they stood perfectly still like statues. Then their equipment began overloading and exploding. The alien occupation forces were eliminated as completely as their fleet in space, that the effect of Project Prometheus spread across the entire galaxy within an hour. Every Zephyrian ship, base, and outpost was connected to the same communication network that had made their empire so powerful. The network that had allowed them to coordinate the conquest of hundreds of worlds became the pathway for their complete annihilation. Not a single alien survived the quantum pulse. President Martinez emerged from her underground bunker to see a world that had been saved from extinction. The alien occupation forces had been destroyed so quickly that most cities showed little damage from their brief presence. The orbital bombardment had barely begun when Project Prometheus eliminated the entire Zephyrian fleet. Humanity had won the most complete victory in the history of warfare. Dr. Pierce and his team began studying the alien technology that had survived the explosions. There was not much left to examine, but what remained gave humanity incredible insights into advanced science and engineering. The technology would help humans develop better defenses and prepare for any future threats from other alien civilizations. Admiral Foster started rebuilding humanity's space fleet using lessons learned from the brief war with the Zephyrians. The new ships would be faster, stronger, and better armed than anything humans had built before. The fleet would protect Earth and explore the galaxy to make contact with other civilizations on humanity's terms. Commander Grant led the first human expedition to former Zephyrian worlds where enslaved species had been freed by the destruction of their alien masters. These liberated races welcomed the humans as heroes who had ended centuries of oppression. Many of them wanted to form alliances with humanity and learn from the species that had accomplished the impossible. The news of the Zephyrian Empire's destruction spread throughout the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Other alien civilizations that had lived in fear of the Empire for generations could hardly believe that the terrible conquerors had been completely eliminated. Some alien races sent messages to Earth asking how such a small and apparently primitive species had managed to destroy such a powerful empire. Earth transmitted a response to all civilizations in the galaxy explaining what had happened. The message was clear and simple. Humanity would defend itself with absolute determination against any species that threatened Earth. The fate of the Zephyrian Empire demonstrated what would happen to anyone who tried to conquer or destroy humanity. Earth was now a force to be respected throughout the galaxy. The message also explained that humanity wanted peaceful contact with other civilizations. Earth was willing to trade, share knowledge, and work together with any species that approached them with peaceful intentions. But any civilization that threatened humanity would face the same fate as the Zephyrians. There would be no warnings, no negotiations, and no mercy for species that chose war over peace. Captain Shaw took command of the new deep space monitoring station that was built to watch for potential threats from other parts of the galaxy. Her crew used advanced technology based on captured Zephyrian equipment to scan distant star systems for signs of hostile alien activity. Humanity would never again be caught unprepared for an alien invasion. The story of humanity's victory over the Zephyrian Empire became legend throughout the galaxy. Other species told stories about the small blue planet whose people had destroyed the most powerful empire in galactic history. Some aliens feared humanity, while others respected them. But no one underestimated them anymore. Years passed, and humanity grew from a single-planet civilization to a galactic power. Human explorers and diplomats traveled to distant worlds, making contact with friendly alien species and establishing trade relationships. The technology captured from the Zephyrians helped humans develop faster-than-light travel and energy weapons that could defend Earth against any future threats. But humanity never forgot the lesson of the Zephyrian invasion. Earth maintained strong defenses and continued developing new weapons and technologies. The quantum entanglement network that had saved humanity was expanded and improved, ready to defend against any enemy that might threaten human civilization. The final transmission from Earth had become reality. Anyone who struck against humanity would indeed cease to exist, completely and forever.